Hello, Amanda, Gen X Alaska. We are getting close to finishing reading the Constitution of the state of Alaska. Okay, we are on Article 15, Schedule of Transitional Measures, Continuance of Law. All laws in force in the territory of Alaska on the effective date of this Constitution and consistent therewith shall continue in force until they expire by their own limitation, are amended or repealed, saving of existing rights and liabilities. Except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, all rights, titles, actions, suits, contracts, and liabilities, and all civil, criminal, or administrative proceedings shall continue unaffected by the change from territorial to state government, and the state shall be the legal successor to the territory in these matters. Local government, cities, school districts, health districts, public utility districts, and other local subdivisions of government existing on the effective date of this Constitution shall continue to exercise their powers and functions under existing law pending enactment of Measure 42 legislation, I think that's a typo, to carry out the provisions of this Constitution. New local subdivisions of government shall be created only in accordance with this Constitution. Continuance of office. All officers of the territory or under its laws on the effective date of this Constitution's Hall continue to perform the duties of their offices in a manner consistent with this Constitution until they are superseded by officers of the state. Corresponding qualifications. Residence, citizenship, or other qualifications under the territory may be used towards the fulfillment of corresponding qualifications required by this Constitution. Governor to proclaim election. When the people of the territory ratify this Constitution and it is approved by the duly constituted authority of the United States, the governor of the territory shall, within 30 days after receipt of the official notification of such approval, issue a proclamation and take necessary measures to hold primary and general elections for all state elective offices provided for by this Constitution. First, state elections. The primary election shall take place not less than 40, no more than 90 days after the proclamation by the governor of the territory. The general election shall take place not less than 90 days after the primary election. The elections shall be governed by this Constitution and by applicable territorial laws. United States Senators and Representative. The officers to be elected at the first general election shall include 2 senators and 1 representative to serve in the Congress of the United States, unless senators and a representative have been previously elected and seated. 1 senator shall be elected for the long term and 1 senator for the short term, each term to expire on the 3rd day of January in an odd-numbered year to be determined by authority of the United States. The term of the representative shall expire on the 3rd day of January in the odd-numbered year immediately following his assuming office. If the first representative is elected in an even-numbered year to take office in that year, a representative shall be elected at the same time to fill the full term commencing on the 3rd day of January of the following year, and the same person may be elected for both terms. Terms of first governor and lieutenant governor. The first governor and lieutenant governors hold office for a term beginning with the day on which they assume office and ending at noon on the first Monday in December of the even-numbered year following the next presidential election. This term shall count as a full term for purposes of determining eligibility for re-election only if it's 4 years or more in duration. Amended 1970. Election of first senators. At the first state general election, one senator shall be chosen for a 2-year term from each of the following Senate districts, described in Section 2 of Article 14. A, B, D, E, G, I, J, L, N, and O. At the same election, one senator shall be chosen for a 4-year term from each of the following Senate districts described in Section 2 of Article 14. A, C, E, F, H, J, K, M, N, and P. Terms of first state legislators. The first state legislators shall hold office for a term beginning with the day on which they assume office and ending at noon on the fourth Monday in January after the next general election, except that senators elected for 4-year terms shall serve an additional 2 years thereafter. If the first general election is held in an even-numbered year, it shall be deemed to be the general election for that year. Election returns. The returns of the first general election shall be made, canvassed, and certified in the manner prescribed by law. The governor of the territory shall certify the results to the President of the United States. Assumption of office. When the President of the United States issues a proclamation announcing the results of the election and the state has been admitted into the Union, the officers elected and qualified shall assume office. First session of legislature. The governor shall call a special session of the first state legislature within 30 days after the presidential proclamation, unless a regular session of the legislature falls within that period. The special session shall not be limited as to duration. First legislature's office holding. The provisions of Section 5 of Article 2 shall not prohibit any member of the first state legislature from holding any office or position created during his first term. First Judicial Council. The first members of the Judicial Council shall, notwithstanding Section 8 of Article 4, be appointed for terms as follows: 3 attorney members for 1, 3, and 5 years respectively, and 3 non-attorney members for 2, 4, and 6 years respectively. The 6 members so appointed shall, in accordance with Section 5 of Article 4, submit to the governor nominations to fill the initial vacancies on the Superior Court and the Supreme Court, including the office of Chief Justice. After the initial vacancies on the Superior and Supreme Courts are filled, the Chief Justice shall assume his seat on the Judicial Council. Transfer of court jurisdiction. Until the courts provided for in Article 4 are organized, the courts, their jurisdiction, and the judicial system shall remain as constituted on the date of admission unless otherwise provided by law. When the state courts are organized, new actions shall be commenced and filed therein, and all causes other than those under the jurisdiction of the United States pending in the courts existing on the date of admission shall be transferred to the proper state court as though commenced, filed, or lodged in those courts in the first instance, except as otherwise provided by law. Territorial assets and liabilities. The debts and liabilities of the Territory of Alaska shall be assumed and paid by the state, and debts owed to the territory shall be collected by the state. Assets and records of the territory shall become the property of the state. First, reapportionment. The first reapportionment of the House of Representatives shall be made immediately following the official reporting of the 1960 decennial census, or after the first regular legislative session, if the session occurs thereafter, notwithstanding the provision as to time contained in Section 3 of Article 4. All other provisions of Article 4 shall apply in the first reapportionment. State capital. The capital of the state of Alaska shall be at Juneau. Seal. The seal of the territory, substituting the word state for territory, shall be the seal of the state. Flag. The flag of the territory shall be the flag of the state. Special voting provision. Citizens who legally voted in the general election of November 4th, 1924, and who meet the residence requirements for voting shall be entitled to vote notwithstanding the provisions of Section 1 of Article 5. Ordinances. Ordinance number 1 on ratification of the Constitution, Ordinance number 2 on the Alaska-Tennessee Plan, and Ordinance number 3 on the abolition of fish traps adopted by the Alaska Constitutional Convention and appended to this Constitution shall be submitted to the voters, and if ratified, shall become effective as provided in each ordinance. Editor's note: all 3 ordinances were ratified on April 24th, 1956. See Appendix A. Effective date. This Constitution shall take effect immediately upon the admission of Alaska into the Union as a state. Appropriation for relocation of the capital. If a majority of those voting on the question at the general election in 1982 approved the ballot proposition for the total cost to the state of providing for relocation of the capital, no additional voter approval of appropriation for that purpose within the cost approved by the voters is required under the 1982 amendment limiting increases in appropriations. Amended 1982. Reconsideration of amendment limiting increases in appropriations. If the 1982 amendment limiting appropriation increases is adopted, the Lieutenant Governor shall cause the ballot title and proposition for the amendment to be placed on the ballot again at the general election in 1986. If the majority of those voting on the proposition in 1986 rejects the amendment, it shall be repealed. Amended 1982. Application of amendment. The 1982 amendment limiting appropriation increases applies to appropriations made for fiscal year 1984 and thereafter. Amended 1982. Applicability of amendments providing for redistricting of the legislature. The 1990, I can hear my husband singing. The 1998 amendments relating to redistricting of the legislature apply only to plans for redistricting and proclamations of redistricting adopted on or after January 1st, 2001, amended 1998. And then it has the Constitutional Convention delegates. Agreed upon by the delegates and Constitutional Convention Assembly at the University of Alaska this 5th day of February in the year of our Lord, 1956, and of the independence of the United States, the 180th. And then it has all these names. That's all for this part of reading the Constitution, and we are almost done. The rest of it is just the stuff that's at the back of the Constitution, but we'll try to go over it because it's still very important. And as usual, you have to watch me walk off because I don't want to edit. Love ya.